Welcome to Wild Sports Talk with Loro and Isaiah. Today, on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Brooklyn Nets getting swept by the youthful Boston Celtics. And we'll have to talk about that as the season goes along here, as the playoffs go along here. And on the NFL segment here, we'll talk about does will Deebo Samuel's trade trade demands come true? And for baseball, we have to talk about the Mets rallying from 5 runs in the ninth to stun the Cardinals 5-2 after Max Scherzer pitched 7 shutout innings and striking out 10 batters. And then Isaiah's Phillies took advantage of several defensive miscues against the Colorado Rockies in an 8-2 victory. And then Bo Bichette hitting a grand slam to help the Blue Jays take down the Boston Red Sox 6-2, and more on Wild Sports Talk. And we have an announcement to make on Wednesday. It will be the MI6's mock draft, where Isaiah and me and Ben Kearse on the Extra Point, we are going to be revealing our mock drafts. I'm with Isaiah Leung, and Shardul Gupta should be joining us momentarily. And Isaiah, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Loro. Doing pretty good. My Phillies got a great win today against the Colorado Rockies. Wasn't looking too good for the first couple of innings there, but glad that we managed to rally back and come back and win that ball game, because a loss, if we lost the Rockies again, it would be very ugly. It would be very ugly in Philadelphia. But a lot of NBA playoffs going on today. First of all, I need to start by apologizing to one of my co-hosts on Batter Up and also Extra Point, my guy Ben Kearse, like you see down below in the comment. I think this was during December or January. I said that Ben Celtics were frauds, they were pretenders, that they were not going to do anything. They weren't even going to make the playoffs. And they not only did they make the playoffs, but they started off slow. They got red hot. They got the second seed in the Eastern Conference, and then they managed to sweep away Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and the Brooklyn Nets. So, Ben and all the Celtics fans out there, I just wanted to say, I was wrong about that. You guys are for real. You guys are the real thing, and I can't wait to see how far you guys go in these playoffs.
Yeah, he said, Isaiah, I respect you, my friend. And he also says that the Boston Red Sox are looking rough, and with a mad emoji here. So let's start with talking about some football first. I mean, talk about with the draft now being in about 3 days from now, is that Deebo Samuel requested a trade from a team. Meanwhile, John Lynch said in his pre-draft press conference that he can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo Samuel. My thinking is this: I think that the John Lynch is pretty much denying Deebo Samuel's trade demands from what based on his comments here. And we got Shardul here. I mean, he's a fellow 49er fan on the network. We'll talk to him. We'll get his thoughts on that. I'll start with you, Isaiah. What is your thoughts on John Lynch saying that he can't ever imagine wanting to move on from Deebo Samuel?
I'm not surprised, because a GM of a football team is not going to come out and say, like, oh, we're definitely going to trade Deebo Samuel. Like, they're never going to come out and say that. I was surprised, however, that he didn't, snip it in the bud. I was surprised that he didn't just slam that door shut. He said that I can't ever imagine that we will trade Deebo Samuel. Yes, that is a strong denial, but that's not the strongest denial in the world. If you're not going to trade Deebo Samuel, then you should say there is no chance whatsoever that we will trade Deebo Samuel, or you should say, like, we are not trading Deebo Samuel whatsoever, no matter what offer comes your way. You don't say that, I can't imagine that we will trade Deebo Samuel. That that right there left the door a little bit open on a possible Deebo Samuel trade. John Lynch, I don't feel like from what he was saying, I don't feel like he was actually denying Deebo Samuel's request. I felt like he said like, oh, we're not gonna do it. I felt like from what he said was, we're not gonna do it right now, but if there's an offer that is massive and comes our way, we'll certainly do it. So I don't think he left the door entirely closed on a Deebo Samuel trade. But having said that, I really do believe, and this is probably like a bold hot take right here, and probably I'm in the minority when it comes to 49er fans out there, and that is, I think the 49ers should trade Deebo Samuel. When I heard about Deebo Samuel's trade request, I believe it was last week, last week, I said, do it. Absolutely, do it. Because there's reports right now coming out that the New York Jets are reportedly willing to offer the 10th pick in next year's, or in this upcoming draft, plus a bevy of other draft picks. If that report is true,
testing.
it would be foolish not to trade Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel, he's a great talent. Don't get me wrong, but I'm of the mindset that if you trade or if you sign a wide receiver to a contract that is worth $26 to $28 million per year, which is what Deebo Samuel right now is demanding from the San Francisco 49ers, if you sign a wide receiver to a contract that's worth that much per season, you're not going to win a Super Bowl, because you're going to be so hamstrung, and your team is going to be so hamstrung that you can't pay the other difference makers on your team, like a Nick Bosa, like a Brandon Ayuk when his contract comes up, like a Drake Greenlaw, and other difference makers that you have on your football team. Football is not just about one player. Yes, you need to have a great star on your team, but you also need to have multiple great players. It's football is a team sport, and if you pay one guy like $28 million, if he's not a quarterback, then that's absolutely stupid. So I think the 49ers, what they should do is, I think the 49ers should trade Deebo Samuel, because I do not want my team to be severely hamstrung and to have to pay a wide receiver, a non-quarterback, $28 million plus per season on my football team. And I think also, if you do trade him, we've seen the trade packages for Devontae Adams. We've seen the trade packages for Tyreek Hill. You get a massive haul for those players, which you can then use and draft one or two great wide receivers, because drafting wide receivers is really easy. There's always like 2 or 3 great ones that come out every year in the draft. So wide receiver is not really a premium position when it comes to the draft. So if you get, like, let's say the New York Jets 10th pick, and I'm pretty sure the Jets will probably include another first round pick and then a couple second and third round picks, you would be great, because you would also be replenishing the draft picks that you lost from the Trey Lance trade from the trade up to get Trey Lance last year. Because let's not forget, the 49ers don't have a first round pick or a second round pick this year, and they don't have a first round pick next year. So you get a first round pick this year in the 10th pick, you get another draft pick, another first round pick probably either this year or next year. You could draft a couple of young receivers that will help you out, because this is a very deep and loaded wide receiver class. And then you can use the other picks that you have. You can replenish your cupboard from the loss of draft picks that you had to deal away in the trade up to get Trey Lance. So I think the 49ers absolutely should trade Deebo Samuel. You should trade him, get that massive haul you can get, and then probably draft a Drake London out of USC, or draft Jamison Williams out of Loro's your Alabama Crimson Tide, or draft Christian Watson, Trey Lance's favorite target from North Dakota State. I think that plan right there is way better than paying Deebo Samuel $26 to $28 million per year and severely hamstringing your team.
You don't want to do that. I mean, like you said, Trey Lance's favorite target out of North Dakota State could be coming, and I think that Isaiah, you're right on that. They definitely can build their team around Trey Lance, and we want to welcome Shardul here, Shardul Gupta. If you can hear us, welcome. And what is your thoughts on John Lynch's comments about trading Debo Samuel, and do you agree with Isaiah about the Niners trading Debo Samuel so that they can get more draft capital in return?
I mean, I agree with you 100% that we should trade Debo Samuel so we get more trade capital because he's a really great player on the faithful, and then we don't want to lose. I don't want to trade him because then we'll lose a great person like Debo.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that, like what Isaiah was saying, Shardul, is that he thinks the Niners should trade Debo so that the Niners can make up for that lost draft capital that they had to acquire in when they had to move up 15 spots to get Trey Lance. Can you hear us, Shardul?
Yeah, I could hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying here. I mean, the draft is 4 days away, and 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 we'll see what the Niners do. A draft day trade could happen, but we'll see. But anyways, let's talk some baseball here, and I'm going to start with Isaiah's Phillies here as they took advantage of several defensive miscues by the Colorado Rockies in an 8-2 victory tonight. And Bryce Harper homered and drove in 2 runs. Rhys Hoskins had 3 hits as the Phillies had an 8-2 victory. And Isaiah, you must be happy about that. Thank you for you guys beating the Colorado Rockies, because the Colorado Rockies are playing great baseball to begin the season, and it definitely benefits my Dodgers and also Shardul's Giants, which I'll get Shardul's take on the Giants win over the Milwaukee Brewers shortly.
This was a great win for the Phillies because the series against the Brewers over the weekend really left a sour taste, not only in my mouth, but also probably the Phillies as well, because you should have won that series. You know, you won Friday, you squeaked out that win, and then on Saturday you had a 3-0 lead. And with Zach Wheeler pitching, you're like, okay, you have a 3-0 lead, so you should win that game. You should win that game, but then Zach Wheeler gives it up, and then Sunday, you had a lot of chances to win that game, and we're not going to get into the whole Angel Hernandez thing, but let me just say this one thing. Angel Hernandez should never, ever umpire another Major League Baseball game again. In fact, I think the Phillies should sue Angel Hernandez after yesterday's embarrassing atrocity that happened. But this was a great win for the Phillies. This was a game that you had to win, a series that you need to win. And I think it really came down to Kyle Gibson becoming or pitching like that savvy veteran that he is. Kyle Gibson's been around for a long time, and he certainly got into trouble a lot in this game, but it was his ability to get out of trouble that really helped him weather the storm. He got in and out of trouble, but then, he got the ground ball, the double plays, the strikeouts, got the timely fly balls to get the outs, and that's what I really like about Kyle Gibson, and that's why he's really different than a lot of these other Phillies pitchers, is the fact that Kyle Gibson, he is calm, he is a guy that never panics even when he's in a jam, and I think that's some stuff that Aaron Nola and Zach Eflin and even Ranger Suarez should learn from, is that, okay, yeah, you get into trouble, but it's okay if you get into trouble. Just don't give up a run. Just focus on the batter, and that's what Kyle Gibson did tonight. And the bullpen was fantastic. The Philly, everybody's talking about, oh, the Phillies bullpen sucks and this and that, but Sir Anthony Dominguez, 1/3 of an inning pitch, 1 hit given up. No runs given up. Jeurys Familia comes in 7th inning when the Phillies when the Rockies had runners at second and first with nobody out, gets out of the inning with no runs given up. Then James Norwood, no runs given up. Bailey Falter, no runs given up. I mean, that bullpen was just fantastic tonight. And then you talk about the lineup. I think this Phillies lineup is just heating up right now. You look at the Philadelphia Phillies. Gene Segura is perfect in the leadoff spot. He gets you going, which you need. Rhys Hoskins is perfect at the 2. He had 3 hits tonight. Bryce Harper had a solo home run. Nick Castellanos had a hit. JT Realmuto had 2 hits. Schwarber had a hit. Alec Bohm had an RBI. I mean, your top 7 guys, the guys that are like the meat of your lineup, they produce tonight, and that's what's going to carry the Phillies. And you have to have your heart of the lineup, your 2 to 7 guys carry you, because that's what this team is built on, and they certainly did tonight, and that's why the Phillies won this baseball game.
That's really well said there, Isaiah. The Phillies are starting to play better as of late, but I'm going to go to Chardol next. And Chardol, tell us your thoughts on the Giants getting a win in Milwaukee. And it was a makeup game because of the lockout, and my boy Jock Peterson, I heard, hit a go-ahead home run. And I see you got the Giants jersey on, and I can't wait to do our post-game show when the Dodgers and the Giants go head-to-head next week. And give us your thoughts on the Giants getting the win. And both my Dodgers and your Giants are both toe-to-toe for first place right now in the NL West.
So for me, I was really happy that my Giants got the 4-2 win today over the Brewers. It was a great victory for the whole San Francisco community. Jock Peterson contributed. Luis Gonzalez contributed. They both hit a home run. I think Jock Peterson is absolutely an amazing signing for the Giants. When we got him, we were like ecstatic that we got somebody from your Los Angeles Dodgers on our roster. So I think let's I hope the Giants keep this going. We're 12-5 right now in the standings, and let's sweep the Brewers in the next 2 games we have in the series.
Yeah, I mean, let's see what that happens here. But anyways, we got a comment from Casey King. He says, hello, guys, and good evening to you all as well. He's just getting home from watching the Dodgers shut out the Diamondbacks, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Dodgers shutting out the Arizona Diamondbacks 4-0. It's Walker Buehler pitching a complete game shutout. First complete game shutout of the year for Walker Buehler. And I also think that Walker Buehler is already the ace of the Dodgers pitching staff, and I think that he is he didn't have a good outing his last time out, but I just think that today against a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks, he was dominant, and that's the Walker Buehler that we all know and love. And Chardol, knowing that Walker Buehler pitched a complete game shutout against the Arizona Diamondbacks, what is your thoughts on that performance? And hoping that you get to see him go up against Logan Webb next week. Who knows?
I mean, when you look at a pitcher like Walker Buehler, he's dominant, man. Like, every day he comes out really strong, just strikes out a couple of batters. So he's proving that they can keep this guy on the roster for a while for a while.
I think Walker Buehler is already the ace of this Dodger staff. And Isaiah, I mean, I didn't know if you watched this game, but what was your thoughts overall on Walker Buehler's complete game shutout performance against a team like the Arizona Diamondbacks, who's going to be under 500 for like pretty much most of the season?
My thoughts on it is that Walker Buehler has pushed Clayton Kershaw out as the ace of the Dodgers. Walker Buehler now is clearly the ace of your Los Angeles Dodgers, Loro. Walker Buehler, he was tremendous again, as you should expect, because every time he goes out on the mound, you should expect him to have a terrific performance. But I just think, the Dodgers, they handled their business. I know our guy Casey King was there tonight in the desert. But when you look at the Dodgers, Mookie Betts did his thing. He got a hit. He had 2 runs scored. He had 2 walks. He did his job of getting on base. Freddie Freeman, 2 for 5. Trey Turner got a hit. Max Muncy got a hit. Will Smith was tremendous tonight. Chris Taylor was tremendous as well. But it was Turner, Freeman, and Muncy that was like the catalyst of this Dodger team offensively for the Dodgers, as well as Walker Buehler. And I'm glad that Walker Buehler, when Dave Roberts was going to pull him out. I'm glad that Walker Buehler went out there and told Dave Roberts, no, you're not going to take me out because I know I went through 8 innings, but hey, I got a low pitch count. I want to get this shutout. Dave Roberts keeps him in there, and he gets a complete game shutout. So what a performance, a masterful performance by Walker Buehler tonight.
It is. You're going to expect that from Walker Buehler pretty much when he takes the mound every time for the Dodgers. But anyways, talk about down to their final out. The Mets rallied for 5 runs in the 9th to stun the Cardinals 5-2 after Max Scherzer pitched 7 shutout innings and struck out 10 batters. Talk about this, Isaiah. I'll tell you, the Mets are for real. And it's so impressive that they are winning ball games without their ace, Jacob deGrom. And I think that when Jacob deGrom comes back, I think the Mets rotation is going to be nasty.
The reason why the Mets won this game was because the Cardinals choked. You could clearly see it. There was a ball hit to third base where the third baseman fires it, to the right side, I believe, of the first baseman, or the third baseman fires it to the right side of the first baseman. Ball gets away, and then he fires it, and then the first baseman retrieves the ball. He then fires it to the catcher to try to throw the runner out of home, and he fires it way off, and that's why the runner scored, and that's why the game was tied. It was just very little simple, weird mistakes by the St. Louis Cardinals that you just never see a Cardinal team make. You just never see them make those type of errors. And for some reason tonight, they were just making these errors like left and right. It just really befuddled me. Loro, I do got to agree with you. This Mets team, they look different. They really look different. Normally you would think that, hey, 2-0 entering the 9th, you're down to your final out. Okay, just call it ball game already because you're not going to win that game. But the Mets, they rallied back. They showed grit. They showed determination, and they rallied back, and they ultimately won this baseball game. And when you looked at this game, you would have thought that it was the Mets that would have made those mistakes, those errors on the field, but it turned out to be the Cardinals. So good win for the Mets. I'm very impressed with the job that Buck Showalter is doing right now and the performances that Lindor and the other guys are putting on right now as we speak. But we'll see what happens later on because the Mets, they always start fast, but then they collapse late in the season. So we'll see how if they can maintain it late in the season. That's my biggest question for them. It's not they're playing April, May, or June. It's they're playing July, August, September, and October.
And Chardol, you have a question for Isaiah. Go ahead and ask it.
Isaiah, so how do you feel about Starling Marte, Chris Bassett, and Mark Canha, all 3 former Oakland Athletic players now playing for the New York Mets? What are your thoughts about that?
I feel like poop. That's what I'll tell you. I feel like poop because I wish they were still on my team. Starling Marte is the kind of player that you want to build your baseball team around. This guy never strikes out. This guy always makes contact. He always puts the bat to the ball, and he's a guy that hits the ball to all fields. If you shift him to the left side, he'll hit the ball to the right side. If you shift him to the other way, he'll hit the ball to the opposite field. So I really like that guy. I like the fact that he's always just trying to find a way to get on base, or he's doing the little things to win. Like if you have a runner at second and third, you don't need to swing for the fences. You just try to get him home with a sac fly or a ground out. That's the kind of player that I want the Oakland A's to have. I want all the Oakland A's to have like 20 of them because that's the player that I love watching, and it's very instrumental to winning. And as far as the other guys, Bassett and Canha, I'm not surprised that they're doing well because they were just great players for the Oakland A's, and I really wish that he was still there.
Yeah, and also, anyway, Chardol, what is your thoughts on the Mets rally come from behind win over the Cardinals?
I found it pretty surprising because when you come back, when you rally down 5 runs, it's a big deal because they probably hit some home runs, probably made the game closer. So I'm actually pretty excited. I'm actually pretty shocked that a team could come back down 5 runs and end up winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, talk about that, Chardol. It was a very, very good game here. But anyways, folks, now we'll go from baseball to the hardwood, and let's start with talking about Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics scoring 29 points. Jaylen Brown added 22, and the Celtics sweep Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and the Brooklyn Nets to move into the second round. And this is pretty much – and also there's a question there. Following Brooklyn's first round embarrassing exit, does Steve Nash deserve to be fired? I'm going to say no, not necessarily, because I just think that you got to give him one more shot here. And I think that people might disagree with me on this, but I also think that the Nets, they had a super powered team, but I don't know what the Nets are going to do next. But Chardol, talk about the Celtics sweeping the Nets and following Brooklyn's first round exit. Do you think Steve Nash deserves to be fired?
I don't think he deserves to be fired because I don't think he was to blame for this loss. Like, I don't think he has any say in this situation of why his team got swept by the Boston Celtics 4-0 in the first round, and they're going to be moving on to the second round to play whoever team makes it on.
Yeah, you're talking about the Celtics playing either the winner of the Milwaukee or the Chicago Bulls game. I'm going to go to Isaiah here. Following this sweep of the Boston Celtics over the Brooklyn Nets, and following that embarrassing exit for the Brooklyn Nets, do you think Steve Nash deserves to get fired?
Well, I'll give my thoughts on the game first before I get into the Steve Nash question. About the game, let me say this. I was very stunned at the Celtics Nets series in general, because when this series first came out, I remember putting it in our MI6 group chat that this is probably going to be the best series of the first round. And I said the second best series of the first round is going to be the Warriors versus the Denver Nuggets. So now you look at, these two predictions that I made, both of them, or one of them ended up in a sweep. The other one, I thought it was going to end up in a sweep, but it ended up going 5 games. So I was very stunned. I'm very stunned right now at the results of these series thus far. But in terms of this game in general, KD got hot. He was terrific, but it was too little too late. I mean, Jason Tatum had 29. He was tremendous. Al Horford, who everybody thought was washed up, he had 13 points and 6 rebounds and 26 useful minutes of play. Jaylen Brown at 22 points. Marcus Smart at 20. For the Celtics, it was just a team effort. And their offense, they moved the ball. They played fast. Their defense was suffocating as usual. Durant, he had 39, 7 rebounds and 9 assists. Irving at 20, Seth Curry at 23, but other than that, there was really no other Brooklyn players that really showed up. I mean, Andre Drummond had 0. He only played 4 minutes. Nick Claxton only had 13. Goran Dragic had 10 points. Patty Mills, who was signed to a big contract in the offseason, he had only 5 points. In 19 minutes of play. I was just more disappointed by the role players. The role players were supposed to help supplement this big three, but they didn't really do too much. And I'm just really shocked that Brooklyn, with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving, they could not even just win one basketball game against the Celtics. They couldn't even win one. I'm not saying you win the series, but you could at least win one, especially on your home court. But you couldn't even win one. And that's why it was super, super, super embarrassing for the Brooklyn Nets. And as far as should Steve Nash be fired, no, he shouldn't be fired, because it wasn't his fault that that Harden wanted out, and there was just so many things going around against on this Brooklyn Nets team with Kyrie not wanting to take the vaccine and all of that stuff. I don't think he should be fired, but I think he will be fired, and here's why. Because there's someone needs to be scapegoated after an embarrassing collapse and a mess like this. There cannot be no changes made. And you're certainly not going to cut Kevin Durant, or you're not going to cut Kyrie Irving. You're not going to fire Sean Marks because he's tremendous. So who's going to get the blame? It's going to be the head coach. And I just really think that Steve Nash, I think his days in Brooklyn are done. I think he coached his final game tonight for the Brooklyn Nets. I will not be shocked if he gets let go, because you have to blame someone for this collapse. Look at the Lakers with Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel, me and Loro both agreed that it wasn't his fault what happened with the Lakers. The Lakers are poorly constructed, and they didn't really give a whole lot of effort and hustle and heart out there on the basketball court. But you can't cut LeBron. You can't cut AD. You can't cut Westbrook. You're not going to fire Pelinka, so who's going to be the scapegoat? It was Frank Vogel. And I think that's the position that Steve Nash is in, and I think that he ultimately will get fired by the Brooklyn Nets.
And Chardol, you have something to add here before we move on to our next topic.
So I agree 100% with what Isaiah's comment, what he's saying. With the big three from the Brooklyn Nets, which is Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, I can't believe they couldn't win one game. And they got swept by the Celtics in 4 games.
It's that roster was built to win on paper, Chardol. You're right about that. But the Nets don't have James Harden. So anyways, with that being said here, talk about Pascal Siakam scoring 23 points, adds 10 rebounds to help the Raptors go into Philly and rout the Sixers and escape elimination 103-88 for the second straight game. Isaiah, I'm going to start with you on this. What is your thoughts on this? And talk about the Raptors being a well-coached team with Nick Nurse.
Here's my thoughts, Loro and Chardon. Doc Rivers is in trouble. Doc Rivers is in trouble, folks. This guy blew a 3-1 lead. He blew a 3-2 lead. This guy just always can't get it done when it's time to close. He is not a closer, and I'm telling you right now, this series is going to go at least 7 games, because Toronto takes game 4 at home. Philadelphia, this was supposed to be the game that they took. You do not want to go back to a boisterous Toronto crowd and have to try to close that series out there. No, this was the game in front of your home crowd. This was supposed to be the game that you had to win. This was supposed to be the closing game for the Philadelphia 76ers, and they flat out just didn't show up. I mean, they were down by so much in this game that when they cut it late in the game, you were like, yeah, they're not going to come back because it's too little too late. And it was. For Philadelphia, they just didn't show up, and Embiid was terrible, especially defensively. He was letting Siakam get whatever the hell he wanted on the inside, and also Anunoby get whatever he wanted on the inside. Gary Trent was tremendous. Precious Achiuwa, he was great. But you look at the stats. Tobias Harris, 16 points. Danny Green, 14 points. Joel Embiid at 20. But the big headline from this game is James Harden had 15. James Harden, when he was traded to the Philadelphia 76ers, he was supposed to be their Kobe Bryant. He was supposed to be their LeBron James. He was supposed to be their Michael Jordan. But instead, he comes up small yet again in a big-time closing situation. How do you only have 15 points in a closing game? You are a superstar. You should at least have 25 to 30 points in a game like this. He struggled big time. Embiid, I was expecting him to go for 40. He had only 20. The big stars didn't show up. And now I'm telling you, this series is going to go 7 games. And the Philadelphia 76ers, folks, are in real trouble. Because when you get to Game 7, and Loro and Chardot, you guys know this. When you get to a Game 7, all bets are off. Anything is possible. No matter whose home it is, anything can happen in a Game 7, and this series, I guarantee it will go to a 7th game, because I think Toronto's going to go in their own home and take game 6 as well. And 3-3, oh boy, 3-0 collapse. I think we might be seeing another collapse from Doc Rivers' teams.
We'll see, Isaiah. It might not happen, but let's see what happens here. But Shardo, what is your thoughts on the Raptors winning Game 4? And could you see it being a collapse here and make NBA history with a team rallying from a 3-0 deficit? Shardo, you there?
I think this game, the Philadelphia 76ers in this game were up 3-1 in the series, and I was hoping that they would close this game out 4-1 in front of their home fans at Philadelphia at Wells Fargo Arena, but they weren't able to do it tonight, so I hope they can go into Toronto for Game 5 and beat the Raptors in 5 games, 4-2, go into Toronto and close the series out over in their arena.
That could happen. I mean, Chardot, the series shifts back to Philadelphia, so the Sixers have a chance to close it, and the Raptors are gonna do everything they can to force a Game 6. Which
So are you? So would that be kind of a sweet victory to go back to Philadelphia for Game 5 and close it out in Philly and win this series 4-2?
4-1, yes. I mean, I think that if I were Philly, I think you gotta think about winning this series in 5. And if I'm Toronto, you gotta think about sending this series back to Toronto for a Game 6, so that Toronto could force a Game 7 back in Philadelphia. I don't know about that, but we'll wait and see here. Anyways, next, the Pelicans did some home cooking in Game 4 on Sunday night against the New Orleans Pelicans, and even though the top-seeded Suns 118-103, who remain without superstar Devin Booker, who has a grade 1 hamstring strain and most likely will be out the next 2 to 3 weeks. Isaiah, what is your thoughts on this win for the Suns? And you think the Suns can hang in there even without Devin Booker? I think they're going to have to get him back for the second round at the latest, just because I think that Phoenix can hang in there. Or Shardo, you can go ahead and give your thoughts on this.
I think this was a great win for the Suns. It was pretty devastating for Devin Booker to go down with that hamstring strain. I don't know if Phoenix will be able to win this game without their star player Devin Booker.
Well, series is tied 3-2 if you look at it. Game 5 is going to be on Tuesday night. So
who do you think is going to be a good replacement for Devin Booker, who's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks with that level 3 hamstring sprain, or hamstring strain? I mean,
I think it has to be Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. I think that's a good question there, Chardol.
How do you think how dominant do you think DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul have been for this Suns team?
I think DeAndre Ayton has been he's been great defensively, great offensively though, and you have to talk about him trying to find an identity here.
But anytime an athlete goes down, it's definitely pretty devastating that Devin Booker's so young and he went down with that hamstring strain.
Yeah, that was kind of a shocker right there, but we'll get Isaiah's thoughts on it in just a little bit here. Anyways, talk about the Jazz and Mavs Game 5 recap and reaction. So, didn't watch the game here. The Mavs won 102-77. The Mavs are 1 win away from moving on to the Western Conference semifinal round. Talk about Luka Doncic having 33 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. That's a great game for him. Rudy Gobert with another double-double with 17 points and 11 rebounds. And Donovan Mitchell with 9 points and 2 rebounds. Shardol, I'll go to you first. And what is your takeaways on that game?
I think this was a great win for the Mavericks. It was a blowout victory. And Luka Doncic put up 33 points, and it's clearly understandable why he's been given the nickname Luka Magic, because he is making some magical moments for this Mavericks team, and they're one win away from advancing to the Eastern Conference Semifinals.
Western. It's the Western. Western Conference semifinals, not Eastern Conference.
Western.
Yeah, Western Conference is Warriors, Mavs, Lakers, and then Eastern Conference is Sixers, Bucks, and Bulls.
Loro.
Yeah.
It's Warriors and Nuggets, not Warriors and Lakers. Lakers are out.
No, I was talking about Warriors Nuggets Western Conference semifinals. So basically, if Dallas wins, then they await the winner of the Suns and Pelicans game for the second round.
So for the championship, I'm predicting that it's gonna be the Raptors and the Warriors, the rematch of last year's NBA Finals.
I could see where you're going with it there, but I'm leaning towards Suns and Heat.
So you don't think that that prediction of Toronto Raptors versus Golden State Warriors for the NBA Finals?
I don't think it's gonna happen, just because if you look at it, the Raptors don't have Kawhi Leonard, and I think that was the reason why the Raptors went to the finals, was because of Kawhi Leonard.
I mean, like if Kawhi Leonard's not playing on the Toronto Raptors, that would be an easy victory for the Warriors because they don't have their star player on their team.
I mean, no, they don't though. But anyways, let's talk about this other news right here. I mean, the Charlotte Hornets surprisingly fired head coach James Borrego after 4 seasons. Borrego went 139 and 167 in 4 seasons at the helm in Buzz City. Did I think that should have happened? Not really, because James Borrego was great for this rebuild. He would have built the Hornets from pretenders to contenders here, Shardol. What is your takeaways on this?
I think I understood why they fired James Borrego, because any coach who doesn't do his job as to lead a team to victory, and he doesn't do his responsibility, there's a absolute reason to fire him. Like, you have a viable reason to do what you're doing.
I mean, I think who do you think the Hornets should hire to help LaMelo Ball and company to take the next step? I think the Hornets should hire Frank Vogel as the next head coach of the Charlotte Hornets.
Do you think that that there was a reason for him to be fired, or or was he not just doing his job correctly?
I just think that the Hornets, with the young team that they have, they just wanted to go in a new direction and have a new identity.
And some people say that the reason why James Borrego was fired by the Hornets was the reason because of player discipline.
It was a lack of player discipline. I think it had to be. But anyways, here's the Lakers question. Here's the Lakers search for a new head coach. Shaquille O'Neal threw his name in the hat during a recent episode of the Big Podcast with Shaq. The NBA legend and current basketball analyst said that he would take the head coaching job with the Lakers if they met his $25 million per year requirement. Should the Lakers hire Shaq to be their next head coach? I'll tell you, I love Shaq. I think Shaq's a great personality. I think he can help the Lakers play defense. I think that he can coach LeBron and AD. I mean, he's been around the game for a long time, and I think he would be a good. I wouldn't mind Shaquille O'Neal being the head coach of the Lakers, but from the looks of it, I want the Lakers to go with the veteran name on the Lakers to to help coach this team moving forward. What about you, Chardol? Who do you think is your pick to coach the Lakers?
If I was to pick the next head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, I wouldn't go for Shaquille O'Neal. I would go for Magic Johnson.
Magic Johnson was a one-time coach for the Lakers, and he didn't even work out here.
So I mean, do you Shaquille O'Neal was a legend for the Lakers and a dominant center. He played 8 seasons for the Lakers.
Yeah, Shaq
So
played.
do you think he'll be a good option for next head coach?
If I could see that happening, I think that Shaq could really help with the defensive side of the ball. And my only question is, would I hire a head coach with no experience like what Brooklyn did with Steve Nash? I'm not sure, to be honest, but I think I'd want to go the veteran route in the lines like David Fizdale or Mark Jackson. Maybe bring back Phil Jackson if the opportunity presents itself. So, anyway, Chardol, with that being said here, it's been a great show. And what is your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that thanks for having me on Wild Sports Talk. I love talking sports with you and Isaiah. Hopefully I can join you guys next time on the broadcast. But it's great that you plan to have me on.
And
And those are my final thoughts.
And before we end this, Isaiah, since you just came back here, I wanted to give your take on the Pelicans doing some home cooking in Game 4 as the Pelicans beat the Bookerless Suns.
The Suns are in deep trouble. I would not be shocked if the Suns became one of the first number 1 seeds to lose to an 8 seed, because this is not. The Pelicans are a very talented 8 seed. They have Brandon Ingram, they have CJ McCollum. And they're playing together right now. And the Suns just lost Devin Booker. He's not going to be back for this series. He's going to be back in like 2 to 3 weeks. I think that was a report. And then the Suns, Chris Paul, yeah, he can carry you, but he can only do so much. He can't really put a team on his back and lead them to a series win. So plus, when you look at it, yes, Game 5 is going to be amazing back in Phoenix. I think the Suns' home crowd is definitely going to get into it, and the Pelicans are going to be a little bit rattled. But Game 6, I think New Orleans is going to take that because it's back in the Big Easy, and New Orleans is going to be playing in front of their home crowd. It's all going to come to Game 7, and Game 7 is when all bets are off. So I think the Suns right now, even if they survive this series, they'll have to play probably Dallas or Utah next, probably Dallas. The Suns are in deep trouble. They are in very, very deep trouble without Devin Booker. And I do not really see him. I don't see Devin Booker coming back, not only for this series, but the first part of next series as well.
Anyways, what is your thoughts overall on the Jazz and Mavs Game 5?
Not surprised. Dallas played like the hungrier team. Utah couldn't stop Dallas' shooting from 3. They couldn't stop Luka. And also, surprisingly, Dallas dominated the Jazz in the paint, which is really surprising to me because Utah has Gobert. They have Rudy Gobert, so they should be the one dominating in the paint. But it was actually Dallas with Dwight Powell and those guys dominating in the paint. So I was very shocked by it. Now it goes back to Utah. We'll see what happens there. But this is another series that I think could go 7 games as well.
And then also talk about the Charlotte Hornets surprisingly firing James Borrego. And I talked to Chardol about this earlier. I predicted that the Hornets should hire Frank Vogel as their next head coach because I think you have a veteran head coach that has had proven experience and a great proven track record help a team like LaMelo Ball and this group of Hornets players. I think he would be a great fit for the Charlotte Hornets because he can help them play defense, have an assistant coach that could coach the offensive side of the ball. And I think that could be a potential fit in Charlotte. And what was your reaction of the Hornets letting go of James Borrego?
I was a little bit shocked, I'm not going to lie, because I thought that James Borrego did a good job. I didn't expect him to be fired. I thought if Charlotte was going to make changes, I thought it would be Mitch Kupchak was going to retire, because you had heard the rumors for the past couple of months that Mitch Kupchak was leaning towards stepping away from being a full-time GM and just either retiring or going into like a senior advisor type of a role. So I was really shocked that Borrego got fired. But when I read into it a little bit more, I shouldn't have been really surprised by it, just because I think this is like a Mark Jackson to Steve Kerr type of a move. James Borrego, I felt like he had done a lot already for them, and he had done all he could, but it was time for them to take the next step and advance deeper into the playoffs and just getting into the play-in game and getting bounced in the play-in game. So I think a veteran coach is very necessary for the Charlotte Hornets to take that next step. They need a defensive-minded coach, because the Charlotte Hornets were 8th in offense. They were 23rd, I believe, in defense, and you have to play some lick of a defense to win in the NBA. So I think if you're the Charlotte Hornets, Frank Vogel, like you suggested, Loro, would probably be a good target for them. Mark Jackson is another one that I think could be a good one, because Mark Jackson was the guy that really helped install that defensive hard-nosed culture with the Warriors. And then Terry Stotts is another one, because he's a defensive mastermind. He was that when he was running the Mavericks defense when they won the championship in 2011. He would be great for that young Charlotte Hornets team.
And then before we get to the Laker question, and Chardol, you have one more question for Isaiah?
Isaiah, so what were your thoughts of when superstar Devin Booker went down with that grade level hamstring sprain, and he'll be out for the next 2 to 3 weeks?
I felt bad for him, because I thought that this was gonna be his coming out party, and everybody would see what I've been saying all along, and that is Devin Booker is a superstar. But everybody's been like, oh, but he's losing so many games. Now when he's finally winning, but he's got Chris Paul and blah blah blah. And I was very sad for him. I thought that, like I said earlier, this was going to be his coming out party, and I'm sad that he's going to miss a whole bunch of games, because he was thriving, especially in that Pelicans series, and it just really sucks now that he's going to have to miss the Pelicans series, and if they get out of it, most likely the second round as well.
Anyway, so as the Lakers search for a new head coach, I talked about with Chardol that could Shaq be the Lakers' next head coach? I wouldn't mind it, because I love Shaq. I think he has an interesting personality, though. He has a great relationship with Jeanie Buss. I think he knows Rob Pelinka from his friend Kobe. And I think that if they met his $25 million requirement, I don't know if I could see that happening. I want somebody that has been around the game. And if you look at the Lakers right now, they have a old roster, and I think that having a proven veteran head coach could help the Lakers get back to competing for championships. And I still think, and I'm on the lines like getting Quinn Snyder if the Jazz move on from him, or maybe Phil Jackson, or maybe Mark Jackson. Who do you think the Lakers should hire as the next head coach? I'm right now, my mind is leaning towards Mark Jackson. And maybe Phil Jackson, because Lamar Odom said something like, I want Phil Jackson to coach Anthony Davis and LeBron James and bring back the triangle offense, because that is really, really good for a veteran team like the Lakers.
You guys hear me now, by the way?
Yeah.
All right. I think that, first of all, Shaq being the head coach, I like the idea, but I think Shaq would be better for a younger team. I think, they would definitely listen to him. But this would be like the Steve Nash hire all over again. This would be like him just, saying, "Oh, LeBron, AD, you guys can do whatever you want," and then Shaq could teach the younger guys. So I don't think it would be that good of a fit. I think the Lakers should stay away from Shaq as far as possible. But in terms of who the Lakers should actually hire, I think it's got to be Juwan Howard out of Michigan because LeBron would respect him. He would be good for their future as well. And also, Mark Jackson would be another good one that they should hire because LeBron would obviously respect him as well. So you got to get a guy that LeBron would respect, LeBron would listen to, and also a guy that the veterans would listen to and not tune him out. And also, you have to get a guy that would help you for the future as well because I'm looking at it that this is LeBron's last season with the Lakers. So you need to start getting ready for life post LeBron James.
You're absolutely right about that, Isaiah. You're definitely right about that. And anyways, what is your final thoughts here? I already got Chardol's final thoughts. What is your final thoughts before we close it for the night? And an announcement is that on Wednesday, time to be determined on the 2022 NFL mock draft special.
Yep, can't wait for that, man. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm already working on my mock draft, so I can't wait to reveal that. I got a big surprise for you guys on Wednesday, so that's gonna be fun. A couple final thoughts is thank you to Ben. Congratulations to your Celtics, Ben, on winning against the Brooklyn Nets, and also Casey and Edward for tuning in tonight. I want to thank all the fans for tuning in, commenting. I also want to thank everybody. Thank you, Chardot, for coming on, and also Laurel for you hosting the show tonight. And I can't wait for next week or this upcoming week because it's our mock draft show, mock draft show, and then it's our we're going to have our draft recap afterwards, and Batter Up is going to be back. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I'm going on vacation next week. So it's going to be so much fun. These next couple of weeks. It's going to be great.
For Chardol, for Isaiah, Lauro signing off for now. Have a great night, and we'll talk again on Wednesday.